How's it going, guys? Uh, good days, good days, good vibes. Uh, it has been a great day today. And what better way to end a good day than with something that I had no intention of doing? uh, this is gonna be basically torture for me. Uh, but today we are going to be reading. That's right. We're going to be reading, but we're not just going to be reading anything. We are going to be reading some sussy books. Yes, we are reading sussy books. The first book of which is going to be recommended to me by a close friend, a very close friend, a very good friend of mine. It's called The Dare by Harley LaRoe. Apparently, it's bad. Apparently, it's bad. So, without further ado, I say we just get right into it. I don't want to take too long because I want to finish this book today. It's only 106 pages, I believe. So it shouldn't be too bad. We should be able to get it done in one session. So expect not a super long stream today. Expect about a 4-hour stream. But we're going to get it done. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be golden. So, with that said, guess what? We've got a new overlay. Yes. We got a vibe. We got a vibe. I was really excited for this. I'm going to be honest. I was excited when I was making this. But no, it's super chill. We got the tree behind me. It's a lo-fi room. Just nice and chill. But not just that. We're being scholarly today. Yes, we are being scholarly. Okay. We've got the glasses. We've got the book. Alright. All that's left is for us to read. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. And for those of you who are wondering, I am going to be drinking during this because I'm gonna need it. I'm gonna need it. So, let's get started. Let's get started. This is the only warning. This is the one and only warning I am going to give. Some content within this book may be disturbing or triggering for some readers. Discretion is advised. This book is not for everybody. It's not for me. But we're here doing it anyways. So take this time. You have been warned. It is not, I repeat, it is not for everybody. Okay, that's good enough. Chapter 1. The Game. A lot of things change after high school. Straight A students become deadbeats. Shy nerds are suddenly married with kids. Guys who swore they were going to join the NFL end up joining the Marines instead. People make all kinds of weird decisions once they hit adulthood. Like Daniel Peters, for example, decided to start inviting freaks to his parties. It was late October, Halloween weekend to be exact. The night was cold, an icy breeze whipping up. Flurries of golden leaves down the quiet suburban streets. Daniel's neighborhood was gated, requiring check-in at the gatehouse before we could drive our car through. A list of guests has been left with the guard and checked it meticulously as I showed him my ID. Jessica Martin. He said, tapping his pen repeatedly on his clipboard. I gave him a tense, impatient smile and glanced back at the line of cars that had begun to form behind us. Daniel was known for his massive parties. Dozens, if not hundreds, of guests would fill his parties, or fill his parents' massive house, pool, and sizable backyard. That was one thing that hadn't changed after high school. None of us had given up partying. And you are? The guard glanced past me to my passenger in the BMW. My best friend since freshman year. Ashley Garcia, she said, staring down at her phone as she typed. Do you, need my ID or something? No, you're alright. You ladies headed to a Halloween party? I could feel the guard's eyes lingering on my body. At least, what he could see of it, though. The window. Both Ashley and I had dressed up as angels. Slutty, sexy angels. My sheer white bra would have shown off my nipple piercings if it wasn't for the pasties I'd slapped on underneath. And if I happened to bend over in my short Satan skirt, people would be getting a view of my thong. Our angel wings were small, made of white feathers, clipped to the back of our bras. I was getting really tired of this old perv trying to make small talk. I had no doubt he already seen our names on the list and was just trying to get us to have a conversation with him. I impatiently glanced back as yet another car pulled into line. The truck, right behind us, was shaking and rumbling, the engine giving off an incessant drone that was absolute hell for my ears. Something about the ugly old beast looked familiar. Then, glaring into the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of the guy driving and immediately remembered where I'd seen the truck before. Fucking Manson Reed is behind us, I blurted. As soon as the guard finally buzzed us through, Ashley immediately looked up from her phone, turned, and straightened in her seat to look into the truck as we left it behind at the gate. You've got to be kidding me, she said. Are you sure? I can't see anything with those headlights. I saw him. That's the shitty truck he's been driving for years. You don't think... Ashley sat back in her seat, giving me a serious look. You don't think Daniel invited him, did you? Oh God, hell no. I winced in disgust. Daniel wouldn't invite that weirdo. Not after what happened. Remember, Daniel has been on the whole acceptance for everyone kick since he took that philosophy class, Ashley said warningly. And it's not like Manson lives here. Why else would he be in this neighborhood? I shook my head. No way has Daniel's invite standards dropped that low. Literally everyone from high school is freaked out over Manson, except maybe his weird little friend group. No one's going to forget the kid who almost stabbed someone, even if it has been over a year. Ashley folded her arms with a little shudder and I sped up, putting the old truck further behind us. All the houses in Daniel's neighborhood were massive, sitting on wide lawns behind tall, wrought iron gates, fringed by wild aspens wearing fall's bright colors. I could hear the music before I turned the corner into Daniel's street, a throbbing electronic beat. Cars lined the sidewalk, but I managed to find a spot a short walk away. So, like, not to bring up shameful moments, Ashley spoke slowly, popping her bubblegum before she continued. But didn't you and Manson have, like, a thing? I sighed heavily. Why did she have to bring that up? We made out in the bathroom once, but that's not a thing. She raised her eyebrows at me skeptically. It's not a thing. She made a face. I mean, Kyle thought it was a thing. I scoffed. Kyle and I weren't even together. We were so on and off senior year. Okay, but were you on or off? Apparently Kyle thought we were on. I rolled my eyes. That's why he was such an asshole about it. Yeah, but I mean, Manson did pull a knife on him. What kind of a freak carries a knife to high school? The kind of freak who anticipated my ex's anger and came prepared for it. Kyle had always been an asshole to Manson. He'd been an asshole to everyone, but Manson in particular. He was the perfect victim. Quiet, head down, usually dressed in black with a denim jacket, covered in patches. Manson had run with the goth crowd, the skaters, even the anime kids. He'd somehow managed to get his foot in every reject group possible. He was a good punching bag for Kyle, especially once Kyle realized that Manson and I had not a thing, no. But as much as I had teased Manson, little stuck-up cheerleader that I was, Manson teased back. We had the misfortune of our lockers being next to each other, so there was no avoiding the sight of his annoying face. There were days we would bicker back and forth in the halls, all the way to class, name-calling, insulting, laughing. I wasn't really sure if it was normal to develop a crush on my nemesis, but one thing led to another, and then Kyle found out that I actually kissed Manson. It was social suicide for me, but it was a great way to piss off my ex. Kyle and two friends had cornered Manson in the boys' bathroom. They planned to beat him. Kyle told me some shit about defending my honor, but Manson had come prepared. He had to have known what he was getting into when he kissed me. I was Kyle's ex, captain of the cheerleading squad, one of the most popular girls in school. I tugged Manson into the bathroom 4 days after Kyle and I broke up and made out with him against a cold tile wall. You know it was all just to make Kyle mad anyway, I said briskly, reapplying my lip gloss in the visor mirror. He hated that kid. And remember, Kyle had dumped me for Veronica Mills. Obviously, I had to piss him off. Yeah. Well, it worked, Ashley shrugged. Kyle got mad. You got back together, and you broke up again as soon as you graduated anyways. She rolled her eyes. You could have picked someone else to piss him off with. Manson looks like he'd be into, like, killing small animals. His whole little group always freaked me out. That guy Vincent used to talk about being a fucking Satanist. I zoned her out as she went on. I'd said worse things about Manson to his face, worse things to all his friends, but when someone else said it, it irritated me in a way I couldn't fully understand.
Could I interest you in everything?
Hey, thank you,
All of the
Mason.
time.
Much appreciated.
A little bit of everything.
How's
All
it
of the
going?
time. Apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Anything and everything.
I
All
shook it
of the
off.
time.
That wasn't the past. Petty high school drama, it was better off not dwelling on it. I had reached into the back seat to grab my bag, and Ashley suddenly clutched my arm. Manson at 12 o'clock. Good. That's good, man. I looked up slowly. Manson's big truck had pulled over to the park in front of us. Oh my god. No. No, he couldn't actually be here for the party. The truck door opened. Manson was a tall, slim guy, and he looked even taller in his tight, ripped jeans and laced up leather boots. He was wearing a black t-shirt and some kind of metal and leather harness that had 3 silver buckles across his chest. He had a mohawk in high school, but now his dark brown hair was slicked back. He put on some muscle since I'd last seen him. He wasn't bulky, but his biceps straightened against the sleeves of his shirt, and his chest was tight beneath that leather harness. As he hopped out of the truck and slammed his door shut, he carefully fit a shiny vinyl officer's hat on his head. Oh my god. Look down, look down, look down. Ashley tried to warn me, but it was too late. Manson walked past our car and locked eyes with me, freezing me in my seat. He had one white contact in, giving me an eerie look to his face, his other eye appearing black in contrast. I gulped as he passed, unable to look away, unable to blink. He grinned at me, a slow, knowing grin. Then he was gone, down the sidewalk toward the party. I sighed, slumping in my seat. Maybe he hadn't recognized me. Maybe he didn't remember me at all. Yeah, right. After that smile, oh, he remembered everything. And so did I. That grin had thrown me right back in time. Conjured up the image of Manson's face when he was escorted to the principal's office. I'd known what Kyle was going to do, and I tried to warn Manson that day before. I told him not to come to school. He'd come anyway. When all the boys were finally dragged out of the bathroom, Manson had been the one taken away by the campus guards. He had a big purple bruise on his cheek, a drip of blood running down from his chin and from a split lip. And he'd look right at me as he passed and smiled. I'd never been able to interpret the meaning of it. A warning? A threat? A promise? I hadn't seen him since that day. Senior year had continued on, graduation had come, and Manson Reed never came back to school. I felt weird as I thought about it, the same way I had when I'd watch Kyle go into the bathroom to jump him. Boiling guilt. That wasn't strong enough to uproot my feet or unite my tongue to call someone to help. When they took Manson away, there was something scary about the way he'd looked. He hadn't been afraid. He'd come that day knowing that was going to happen and pulled a knife on a 6'3" Kyle Baggins and his jock friends. I'd wanted to kiss him again as I saw him escorted off. I'd wanted to text him when I found out he'd been expelled. I'd wanted to tell him I was proud he had defended himself, that Kyle had deserved the scare, that I didn't blame him for bringing the knife. I never did. I had a reputation to uphold, and Manson Reed did not fit into it. What a creep, Ashley said, shoving her door open. We're avoiding him like the plague. Hopefully he gets kicked out. Hopefully, I muttered, as I slid on my heels. The shoes were strappy and tall, with white filigree pattern that zipped all the way up to my knee. I caught my reflection in the car window as I smiled. I loved making an entrance. The walkway up to the house was lined with jack-o'-lanterns, candles flickering inside their wide, grinning faces. Plastic skeletons hung from the pillars beside the house's entry doors, and fake gravestones littered the grass across the front yard. The thumping bass of a live DJ pounded through my chest, playing Not in Love by Crystal Castles. As I rang the doorbell, it was only seconds before a middle-aged woman with bleached blonde hair and a glass of sangria flung the door open. "Oh my God, Jessica!" she screeched, wrapping me in a tight hug that squished me against her fake tits. "And Ashley, oh my God. Welcome, ladies." "Hi, Miss Peters." I gave her a smile as we swept into the entryway. Miss Peters was the literal definition of a cool mom. She was always present at her son's parties, laughing, dancing, and drinking. She was one of those parents who didn't really seem like a parent, but every now and then would drop some wisdom that could only come from decades of experience on the planet. The pale cream walls and decorative mahogany table in the entry room had been sewn with fake cobwebs, and the light bulbs in the chandelier overhead switched out for black lights. Lifelike mannequins of zombie babies and were tucked into the corners and stared down at us from the stairway. The house was packed, as I expected. There were dozens of people I knew, some friendly and some not. Being captain of the cheerleading squad and dating the football team's star quarterback had earned me plenty of enemies, even after the graduation. I hadn't been the nicest person in high school either, but whatever. The past was the past. Ashley and I poured ourselves some drinks and wandered the party, meeting up with friends and making small talk. Admiring the house's creepy decor, Daniel was always had to go out with his parties. The sangria was held in a giant witch's cauldron. The cheese dip had been molded into the shape of a brain, and even the hors d'oeuvres looked like creepy little spiders and severed fingers. Outside, people dove into the heated pool and played drinking games at the several tables that had been set up to host beer pong and King's Cup. The DJ played on the cobweb-sewn gazebo, wearing a bright red suit and devil horns. The backyard was large, covered with grass, with rows of bushes lining the stone wall that surrounded it. Beyond the wall, the aspens that surrounded the entirety of our town stood ghostly pale in the night, yellow leaves shuddering in the breeze. Near the beer pong tables, we found Daniel shotgunning a beer before he leaped, fully clothed, into the pool. But he hadn't been drinking alone. He'd been chugging alongside none other than Manson Reed, who tossed aside his empty beer can with a smile and laughed as Daniel went diving. I felt like I stepped into the uncanny valley. I'd been a little out of the loop since I started college, but this was all wrong. Why the hell was Manson drinking with Daniel? And why was he surrounded by people who wouldn't have looked twice at him in high school? Why is he staring at you? Ashley said, holding her cup to her mouth to mask her lips. She was right. Manson's eyes had fallen on me, and he'd yet to look away. There was recognition in his gaze, and I wondered what memory came up from him first. Was it me glancing at him in silence as I walked through the halls holding Kyle's hand? Or was it my face inches from his own before we kissed? As I whispered, "Promise not to tell." With a sudden sharp pain in my chest, I wondered if he hated me. Not like I cared about gaining the approval of a weirdo like him, but the way he was looking at me didn't feel hateful. He seemed curious, his eyes lingering over my face and then down over my body. Of course he'd stare. Everybody stared. But there it was again. That festering guilt, its roots tightening around my lungs. After all, I'd made out with him and then immediately got back with the guy who'd been bullying him since freshman year. I teased him relentlessly, spread rumors about him, laughed at him, made life hell for him and his friends. If that didn't make me an asshole, I don't know what would. Hey, ladies, welcome. Daniel ran over, dripping from the pool, offering us high fives instead of hugs. Manson's gaze finally broke as Daniel clasped his hand companionably and said, "Nice job, bro. Just not fast enough." "This is so fucking weird," Ashley whispered. "Since when are they friends?" I shrugged, trying not to linger on the topic. The more I thought about it, and the more I looked at Manson, the more awkward I felt, and awkward wasn't the normal feeling for me at all. A round of beer pong had just ended, so Ashley and I stepped up to the challenge. The winners. I had always been a competitive person. Whether it was cheerleading or beer pong, I hated to lose. We sank the opposing team's cups quickly, taking them down with a few minutes, and getting up a nice buzz while we're at it. With the game over, I realized a small crowd had gathered to watch us play. Manson was watching too. Watching me. Our kiss had faded into the background of my memories as had all our tense interactions. All my cruel words and haughty looks. I'd buried them, packed them away as if they could be forgotten. If they sat long enough in the dark, but there was no forgetting. His presence here was a light in the dark, laying bare everything I tried to erase. The bruise under his eye after Kyle had gone after him. So many bruises. He was always wearing marks. The blood on his lip. But none of that shit was my fault. Okay. Maybe some of it was my fault. All I'd done was kiss him, and he'd kissed me back. I'd spent way too much time since then trying to figure out why. Why Manson Reed? It hadn't been because his quiet, brooding looks had always scared me. And things that scared me were irresistible. It hadn't been because behind that shy, withdrawn exterior, I was certain there was a beast lying in wait. I hadn't been because his lips were surprisingly soft, and when I'd kissed him, he'd wrapped his hand around my throat, and my heart fluttered for a second. No. It hadn't been because of any of that. At all. It was just petty high school shit that we were all better off forgetting. "Who's next?" Ashley laughed, sipping down the last of her drink. "Come on. Who's the next challenger?" "I'll give it a go." My heart sank into my shoes. Manson had stepped up. One white eye and one nearly black stared down at me. It made him look otherworldly, an inhuman being that could have stepped straight out of Hellraiser. What was up with the harness anyways? What the hell was he supposed to be dressed up as? Sure. Okay. Ashley sounded irritated. "Who's your teammate?" Manson shrugged. Just me. Me against her. He pointed at me. It was a struggle to keep my mouth from falling open. I hid my discomfort behind the best resting bitch face I could manage. Yeah. Maybe you hadn't noticed, but we're playing in teams, I said slowly, sarcastically. Scared you'll lose if you play alone? His voice was taunting, familiar. It was the same way he'd spoken to me in high school when he'd snap back at my teasing, except now his voice was steadier. He was almost cocky in the way he carried himself, his mannerisms, his tone. Damn it. He knew how to get to me. I laughed. Oh, honey. No. More like I'll be bored with how easy beating you will be. I take you to accept the challenge then, he said, bouncing the little white ball on the table. I mean, it's an easy victory for you after all, right? My jaw clenched. I wanted to snap out something rude, but Daniel interrupted us. Whoa, guys. If you're gonna go 1 versus 1, let's make this a little interesting. Came up to the table, Sharpie in hand, and began to write on our cups. A single word on some, and nothing on others. As he wrote on the closest to me, I glimpsed at what it said. Dare. Drink or dare, he exclaimed. Same house rules, except if you make it on your opponent's dare cups, they have the option to do your dare instead of lose the cup. He smiled slyly. Any dare you want, no boundaries. The crowd began to cheer, then chant, drink or dare, drink or dare, drink or dare. It was exactly the kind of spectacle a bunch of shit-faced college students would love. And with that, many eyes on me, I'd never live it down if I backed out. Fine, I said, picking up my ball. I hope you're ready to be humiliated, Manson. Oh, wait. But before, you're already used to humiliation, aren't you? The crowd rippled with laughter. They knew exactly what I was talking about. They all knew. Manson may have managed to get on Daniel's good side, but that didn't mean everyone had forgotten where he'd come from. Manson just smiled as we went eye to eye. So you do remember my name. I'm flattered, Jessica. Miss Popular remembers who I am. Oh, wow. His voice was dripping with sarcasm. He lined up his shot and said, I guess I was such a good kisser that you can't forget my name. Less people knew about that. Far less. But there were still murmurs and gasps of, oh shit. I winced, instantly irritated as my face grew hot. That grin of his unnerving, so unnerving, that I missed my cup and lost the eye to eye. I swore softly. I couldn't let him get under my skin. How's Kyle been, Jess? Manson said as he lined up his first shot. I wouldn't know, I said sharply. We're not together. Aw, too bad. Prom king and queen didn't get there happily ever after. What a sad world. Shocking, honestly. His ball flew through the air and sunk. Luckily, not in a dare cup. I didn't know what kind of dares he might come up with, but I didn't want to find out. I guzzled down the cheap beer and set the cup aside. I'm surprised to see you here, Manson, I said, taking aim. I didn't know Daniel was extending invites to dogs. More laughter, even from Manson. The words bounced off him like ping pong balls. The routine felt familiar. The longer we snapped back and forth, the more my heart raced. Everyone likes dogs, he said, leaning down and behind the cups so that as I aimed, I was forced to meet his eyes. He was so damn distracting and creepy, with that one white contact in. And those who don't, well, only assholes kick a dog and expect not to get bit. You still carrying knives around? I tried to sound condescending, but my voice shot up in pitch. Always. So damn serious that I knew he wasn't lying. My hand shook, and the ball flew. Made it in. A dare cup. I folded my arms victoriously. What's your dare, Miss Jess? He said, looking at the cup, musingly. I might just take it. The crowd was shouting suggestions, from the mundane to the completely outrageous. Then Ashley leaned forward and whispered in my ear, and I smiled slyly. I dare you to go inside, shove your head in the toilet, and flush it, I said sweetly. His smile, that oh so cocky grin, flattered slightly. You've had plenty of practice with that already, right? For a second I thought he might actually do it. Instead, he downed the cup and set it aside. It still had the effect I wanted regardless. He'd lost his cocky grin. Oh, Jess. He shook his head. Jess. Don't you know that you're supposed to grow up after high school? We're all adults here. He tossed the ball and made it in. A dare for me, too. But I guess some of us really did peak in high school. What's your dare? I snapped. There was no way I was losing this game. I would take whatever dare he gave. He didn't even hesitate. He'd just been waiting for the opportunity to say it. Kiss my boots. People gasped, laughed, and whistled. Ashley made a horrified noise behind me. I frowned. So what? Just one little kiss? Oh, no, he chuckled, walking around the side of the table so I could see him fully, boots and all. I dare you to get on your knees, get your face down to the ground, and kiss my boots for 60 seconds. The horror on my face brought back that cocky grin of his. Or you can pussy out and drink. Big words from someone who just refused his dare, I shot back, but he was unfazed. Yes or no, Jessica, he said. Now the crowd was invested. Of course they wanted to see me do it. The perverted fucks. Of all things for him to choose, he'd gone straight for something humiliating. Not that I'd chosen any differently. I tossed back my hair and determined not to let him see me sweat. Fine. 60 seconds. The crowd burst into cheers. Ashley was muttering protests behind me, stunned that I was actually going to do it. I walked around the table, heart pounding as Manson stood before me, arms folded. As I got closer, I remembered how tall he was. He could look down at me, even my heels. And as I sunk to my knees in the grass, he loomed over me like a dead-eyed specter. I glanced up. Manson smirked down. You look a lot better on your knees, Jess, he said softly. Soft enough that I don't think anyone else could have heard him over the music. Enjoying your revenge, I hissed. He laughed, shaking his head. It's just a dare, Jess. It's a game. It wasn't just a game. It was more than that. This was payback for every time I'd laughed at him. Every time I'd whispered about him behind his back. Payback for the kiss I'd gotten him attacked. And expelled. I wasn't going to let him see me blush. But the heat on my face had become a wildfire, overtaking every inch of skin. I was certain that even my toes were blushing. I lowered my head, bent low, ass up. My skirt hitched up, and the cold night air brushed against my cheeks. Cheers burst out, whistles and catcalls. If I was going to get attention, I figured I'd be hot while doing it. I'd make Manson wish he could have more of me. His boots were shiny as if they'd just been polished. The leather was worn, with cracks and wrinkles, around the ankle and where laces were pulled tight. As I got closer, I could smell the leather itself, rich and slightly sweet. The smell rushed in my nose and awakened something in me, a strange feeling I couldn't quite name. I inhaled again, deeply, filling my head with the scent. I kissed the toe of his boot, eliciting more cheers from the crowd. The leather was smooth under my lips. I kissed it again, then switched and kissed the other. 60 seconds. Only 60 seconds. That would go quickly, right? I touched my lips to them tightly. Even so, my pale lip gloss left the imprint of my kisses behind. The marks would remain there, likely for the rest of the night. A constant reminder of what I'd done. The position I chose to put myself in was causing my tight thong to press even tighter against my intimate parts. And I was suddenly, horrifyingly aware that I was having a reaction to this that I hadn't expected. I was getting wet. My pussy felt so warm, it was as if she was blushing too. Shit. Surely it wouldn't show through my thong. But then, the thought that someone might see a damp spot when I was in this humiliating position made my blush go cold with horror. Why was this turning me on? I kissed up the toe until I reached the curve of his ankle. I kissed there too, where the leather was worn. I wondered what it would be like to run my tongue over it. I felt the texture of the leather too, savor it, just once. It was the longest minute of my life. I had never done something so blatantly degrading. I had expected to feel my embarrassment turn thick and settle in my stomach, twisted, like rotten food, and leave me feeling ill. Instead, that feeling of embarrassment was turning into lust. And suddenly, I was thinking about Manson pressing the sole of his boot down on my face. I was thinking of him crushing me into the grass, laughing at me, calling me a dirty whore for daring to like it. 60 seconds, Daniel yelled out the count. To the sound of more cheers and whistles, I got up, dizzy, and turned away as quickly as I could. I didn't want to see Manson's smug, victorious face. I went back to my side of the table, chin up, and tucked my hair back, trying to act as if nothing unusual had happened. Ashley was watching me, wide-eyed. Was it that bad? I said softly, taking her drink as she offered it, guzzling the alcohol down. Well, I mean, it was, She shrugged, brushing it off. It was just a dare, and you looked hot as fuck doing it. But girl, you're really red. I nodded quickly. If I could have wiled my blush away, I would have. Instead, it remained. My very own scarlet letter branded over every inch of me. Steadying my breath, I turned back to my opponent. What the fuck are you smirking for? I demanded. Manson looking pleased, far too pleased. Was it worth not losing the cup? He said. I readied my aim. Of course it was. I don't plan to lose, Manson. I sunk his cup and he drank again. But he'd claimed a victory, and we both knew it. We traded cups back and forth. He did his next dare, taking a raw egg shot effortlessly, when I'd hoped to see him gag on it. He took more of my cups without dares, so I drank them down. It was just cheap beer, so my buzz was subtle. As I got down to only 4 cups remaining, looks like you might be losing, Jess, Manson chuckled, shaking his head. Unless you really like doing dares. I don't lose, I said, my voice dripping with fake sweetness. While I was distracted with his taunts, he bounced a ball and made it in, and the crowd gasped at my bad luck. 2 cups for 1. Both of them dares, I sighed. Closing my eyes to mask my frustration. Just give me the dare, I groaned. Certain that Manson was going to come up with something evil, someone handed him a mixed drink that he took a long sip of, and seeing the camaraderie grated on my nerves. Why did people like him? Why had everyone decided to suddenly be nice to the freak? It's for 2 cups, he warned. You know it's going to be a hard one. You don't scare me, Manson. A lie. He did scare me. With one white eye, that confident grin, and my kiss marks on his boots. He seemed like he held all the power. Even worse, every time I looked at him and found him staring back, I felt a warm rush in my belly and tingles up my back. He was turning me on. Just standing there. He was turning me on. And that scared me. I like that thong you're wearing, he said musingly, pacing a little as if in thought. My stomach twisted up into a knot. I saw it while you were down on your knees. Real cute choice to wear under a short skirt. I rolled my eyes. I wasn't ashamed of the crowd having seen my underwear. I'd always gotten enjoyment out of showing off, knowing that they desired me, but couldn't have me. But I had a feeling I knew where Manson was going to dare me to do, and I already didn't like it. Take your thong off, he said, and give it to me. Cheers and whistles immediately sounded. We'd attracted a sizable crowd. Girls from my old cheerleading squad were there. People I'd known for years, all watching, waiting, sipping their drinks. If I hesitated too long, I'd overthink it. I was not going to lose, not to Manson. I reached up under my skirt and yanked down my thong. As I did, I could feel my arousal clinging to the fabric. Even glancing at them briefly, I noticed there was a spot of wetness on the cloth that would betray all of my prideful posturing the second he looked at it. Someone howled their approval. Phones were out recording. This would be all over social media in the morning. But I put on my best sarcastic smile and twirled the panties around my finger. Are these what you want, Manson? I said. He held out his hand, expectantly, so damn cocky, as if it was no surprise to him that I took the dare. No surprise that I was giving him exactly what he wanted. Before I could think myself out of it, I balled up the thong and threw it over, chucking it aggressively. He caught it, smirked, and held it spread between two fingers. "Thanks for the trophy. You fucking perv." I tried to sound disgusted, but my voice came out too high and shanky to be convincing. To my horror, I saw Manson's eyes linger on the gusset and the spot of the dampness. As his gaze slid back up to me, there was a fire in his eyes. I braced myself, expecting him to announce it and add more fuel to the humiliation bonfire. But he just shoved the thong into his pocket with a victorious smile. "Your move," he said. Standing there in my short skirt with no panties proved to be a significant distraction to my game. Every breath of wind kissed up under my skirt and slid over me, cold and shocking against my wet skin. Yes, wet. Embarrassingly wet. I tried not to think about it. I tried not to let my mind linger on the peak of white fabric poking out of Manson's pocket. I squeezed my legs together, worried that I was going to drip down my thighs. The moment I let my mind wander back to how embarrassing this all was, it only got worse. What was wrong with me? I was literally being degraded in front of friends and strangers, and I liked it. Manson was certainly enjoying himself. I could see it all over his face. I wondered how long he'd thought about humiliating me. If he'd fantasized about making me squirm, making my cheeks turn red, and my voice shake. I wondered if it was turning him on too. I took another of his cups, and he took 2 more of mine. Daniel declared house rules to be that if a dare had already been used to keep a cup, if the ball went in again, there wouldn't be a second dare. Since I'd already used my last dare to save 2 cups, those 2 swiftly went off the table. Manson's aim was annoyingly good. He got a 3rd cup from me, and I clenched my fists as I waited for his dare. What else could he possibly ask for me? He pulled my thong out of his pocket. "Take your next shot with this in your mouth." Shocked gasps and howls went up from the bystanders. Some were disgusted, some were intrigued. Their phones were still out. I snatched up the cup, chugged it down, and threw it furiously aside. "Fuck you." I jabbed my finger at him. "Fuck you." Manson shrugged and tucked my underwear back into his pocket. "Relax, Jessica. It's just part of the game." Part of me wanted to continue shouting at him, but I was losing, and doing that would make me look even worse. I drank down the cup as quickly as I could, because if I'd allowed myself to consider his dare for even a moment, I might have done it. I imagined stuffing my own panties into my mouth at his command, and then standing there drooling and gagged in front of everyone. I squeezed my legs together tighter. Maybe I was only paranoid, but I was certain that Manson could tell that this was turning me on. There was a little too much humor in his crooked smile. I was down to only 1 cup. I took one of his, then another. He would only have 1 cup remaining if he didn't take my dare. And we'd be tied. The game was far too close for comfort. People were shouting obscene dare suggestions, but I already knew what I wanted. "I dare you to give me back my thong," I said tightly. He looked at me skeptically. "You sure you don't want to come up with something else?" he said. but I was determined. No, I dare you to give it back. It was a weak dare, but I couldn't handle standing there feeling so naked. It was too distracting to see the lace peeking out of his pocket. There was no way I was going to give him the satisfaction of getting to take it home with him. He drank. He drank the damn cup rather than give my thong back, and my mouth dropped open. "Your turn," he said, smiling at my shock. Softer, but no less confident, he added, "You're gonna lose. Better get it over with." We were tired. We were tied. I couldn't lose. Not now. Not after all his smirking and smug looks. I'd never live this night down. I carefully took my aim. Shot. Missed. I glanced back at Ashley and found her watching in horror, hand over her mouth. Manson took aim. The crowd was waiting with bated breath. I needed a drink, 2 drinks, a shot. I needed my thong back because I couldn't separate my legs without feeling the dampness of my arousal. The ball flew through the air and plopped effortlessly into the cup. The onlooker cheered. Certain victory was his, even before my rebuttal. I tried to concentrate, tried to take my time with careful aim, but then Manson reached down and toyed with the edge of my thong, caressing the fabric between his fingers. My aim was off. Way off. I'd lost. I squeezed my eyes shut, holding back a growl of frustration. Drunken Daniel picked Manson up, and a bear hug, holding him aloft as he'd just won the Super Bowl. People gathered around, congratulating his victory, holding up their phones and replaying the videos they'd gotten of me on my knees. God damn it. I was screwed. My social standing had just been drop-kicked. I stomped off, and Ashley quickly latched herself, reassuringly to my side. I was ready to lose myself in a drunken stupor and forget this annoying game. Jessica. I turned back, jaw clenched. Manson was motioning me back. "You still have a dare, Jess." He was right. My final cup had dare written on the side. But what kind of dare was he going to give me that meant potentially losing his victory? It would be horrible. I just knew it. He wouldn't choose something I'd have to refuse. Fine. I came back to the table slowly, arms folded. I didn't even want to hear it. "What is it?" He paused before he answered, and I swear it was just to watch me squirm. I tried to keep still, but the heat between my legs was making it difficult. My arousal was sticky on my thighs. The look he was giving me, as if I were insignificant, made me want to curl myself back down into my knees. "I'm going to give you another rebuttal," he said. "If you make it, you win instantly. But if you don't, and you lose, you have to be my slave for the rest of the night." My heart was pounding, and I masked how intrigued I was with anger. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Your slave? You do whatever I order you to, for the rest of the night, or until you go home. Any and every order. You do it. No avoiding me. If you agree, you stick by my side. Fuck him. Fuck him and his stupid dare. Fuck this crowd and how invested they were in seeing me brought down. And fuck my vagina for betraying me every step of the way and making me horny over all of this. I had to refuse. Something in me was telling me I'd lose. that I'd lose and I'd like it. I couldn't even let myself consider it. What happened to all that competitive spirit, Jess? Manson pouted, mockingly. As I wrestled with myself, potential social destruction or a chance to redeem myself. Are you intimidated? A little scared of losing? I snatched up the ball. Fury, intrigue, and horniness were creating a concoction inside of me that made my brain feel like mush and set my skin on fire. Throw the shot, said an evil little voice in my head. You know you don't really want to win. You want to do that dare. You want to get on your knees for him again. My hands were shaking. Time around me was slowing. The only thing in focus was Manson. Manson with his one wide eye, his cocky grin, and my lip marks on his boots. Manson, waiting and watching. Manson knowing he'd won. The music pounded in my ears, both too loud and too far away, pounding drums and screaming lyrics. I tried to focus, but no amount of concentration or preparation would have made this shot land. My ball landed in the grass. Ashley swore up a storm behind me and immediately called to me. Come on, Jess, just forget it. But I couldn't. Manson curled his finger at me, motioning to me as the next group of players crowded into the table. How's it feel to be a loser? He said softly, as I came to his side, arms folded, refusing to meet his eyes. His words dug into me. That condescending tone sliding slimily over my skin. He'd gotten to me. He'd actually gotten to me. And the worst part was, I'd enjoyed it. Oh, hey, I see you made it to the end of the video. Well, in that case, you probably liked it. And if you would like to see more videos like this, you can check them out here. Or if you want to see me live, you can watch me here on Twitch. So, yeah. That's it. Bye-bye.